8 years ago, the Kentucky Distillers Association asked the University of Louisville to take a comprehensive look into the impact of our bourbon and distilled spirits industry. We were on the heels of our second tax hike in 5 years, and clearly we had not done a good job as an industry of explaining what bourbon meant to the Commonwealth. Those first results surprised even us, showing that bourbon and distilling was in fact a signature industry that employs thousands of Kentuckians and has a statewide and substantial impact. But it also showed us that we had a lot of work to do to reach our potential. We started working with legislative leaders, outlining the tax and regulatory challenges that were holding bourbon back, and educating anyone who would listen about the coming bourbon boom. And every 2 years since then, the University of Louisville's Urban Studies Institute has tracked our progress, and I've got to say that we have come a long, long, long way. This latest report proves that Kentucky bourbon isn't just a drink, it's the new fuel for the state's economy. Jobs, investment, and revenue are at all-time highs and paying tremendous dividends for all corners of the Commonwealth. We could not have achieved this historic level of success without the leadership and support of our legislative and business leaders who are with us today. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you on behalf of our 33 members for your hard work, your vision, and your commitment. Now, it's my honor to introduce Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin, who last year bunged his first barrel of bourbon at Jim Beam, and has helped us already break ground on the next amber wave of investments. Governor Bevin's motto is Kentucky makes things, Kentucky makes cars, Kentucky makes movies. Well, we're proud that Kentucky makes 95% of the world's bourbon and 100% of the world's best bourbon. Governor, yes, absolutely. Governor, thank you for your leadership. We're honored and proud to call you a friend and our partner in our ongoing efforts.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to those in the media. You know, bourbon, they come out for bourbon. They always come out. Thank you for being here to celebrate this. This is, I mean, you look at what has happened in the last 2, 3, 5 years. I mean, thousands of jobs just in the last couple of years. 2.5 times the economic impact in this state as there was less than a decade ago. And there really doesn't seem to be any immediate end in sight. I'm struck by the fact I just learned something for the first time, and I hope, correct me if this a number that I'm going to throw out is not accurate, but bourbon only represents about 20% of the whiskey consumption in the world, which is remarkable. So there's a tremendous amount of upside, even if it was a pure zero-sum game where you took market share from somebody else in the arguable space. It would seem that there's tremendous opportunity for growth. And yet what we've also seen is that darker spirits, and whiskey in particular, is an increasing demand globally, and we're seeing more increase. So this trajectory, this hockey stick-like trajectory that's represented by those around me is something that I think is just at the front end. And we have over 50 distillers now in 20 some odd counties in this state. I think it's 52 or 3 distillers in 27 different counties. I mean, you think about that. This is not ending anytime soon. There are people who didn't even know what bourbon was 5 years ago that are making it now in this state, and some that would tell you that they're a ways from catching up. But the bottom line is it's exciting, it's innovative, it is the ultimate entrepreneurial approach, and indeed we do make things in this state. How awesome that one of those is a spirit that is enjoyed by people the world over. And I am grateful for the fact that the legislature, and you're about to hear from some of the key members of it, have recognized this in recent months and years the way we haven't always historically. And what was passed out of the House and Senate last year in the form of Senate Bill 11 really opening up economic opportunity for members of the KDA and others as well who are impacting this state day in and day out. The last thing I'll say is this. The average salary and benefit package for somebody employed in the bourbon industry is now about $95,000. Think about that. These are not just whatever kind of jobs. These are the kind of jobs that are highly in demand. They require a high degree of expertise and training, and these are folks that are being very well cared for. I will say one final thing, and that is we do make a lot of things in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. There is nothing that we tax more than the bourbon industry. Frankly, we tax this industry, and it starts with corn, for crying out loud. Every single bottle of Kentucky bourbon, and it really is the only bourbon that is worthy of consumption in the world. I had somebody told me yesterday, well, you do realize that you don't have to make bourbon in Kentucky. I said, well, You don't have to, but if you want it to be good, so at least that's what we're going to keep telling people as we take market share globally. But the bottom line is this: we tax it already like we tax nothing else in this state. I will say to you all, we have tax reform coming. It's going to look like a lot of different things, and it'll be something we'll be wrestling. These two gentlemen and their colleagues, we're going to be wrestling with this in the months ahead. But one thing I'm pretty confident in saying is that, and I'll just say this publicly, I think we're squeezing quite enough blood from this stone. So I take comfort in that. I think we should celebrate the chance to expand this industry, not suffocate it. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to be here. Thank you all for being here.
Wow, thanks, Governor. That's all we had for you today. That's great. That's wonderful news. Thank you, Governor. We appreciate your leadership. Speaking of leaders, our next speaker has been Senate President since 2012 and is a true champion of our industry. He led the efforts in 2014 to virtually repeal the discriminatory barrel tax. Kentucky is the only place in the world that taxes aging barrels of spirits. For his leadership, we awarded him with the KDA's prestigious 100 Proof Award, which is recognized as elected officials who demonstrate tremendous care, diligence, and initiative in promoting and protecting Kentucky bourbon. So, Senator President Robert Stivers.
Well, I want to appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk to a lot of distillers and other people. I've known about distillation for many, many years. In Clay County, we have a lot of distilleries. Some of them aren't quite legal, and some of them aren't quite brown either. They're a little white. And maybe I've hurt that industry or local part of my economy with all the work we've done on this. But truly, let me say this. I can remember when we first met with the KDA. Senator Thayer and I were the new kids on the block. You know, nobody talks about us anymore, Jeff. They're just talking about you all the time. Hey, Mac, we need to have the bourbon to drown our sorrows. But with that, we made a pledge, we made a promise that we were going to change the dynamics of the bourbon industry because truly it has huge impact, had the potential for huge impact, and we did it by getting rid of the ad valorem tax on a phase-out. Senate Bill 11, as the governor spoke, we changed the regulatory environment. We have created something that Speaker Hoover and I saw a few years ago when we were in the Napa Valley. We want to create that atmosphere here where we're seeing tourism, we're seeing investment, we're bringing people to Kentucky because truly that's the way we're going to grow our economy. And when you think about what we did, we lost about $12 million in revenue to the state. But what did we generate? We generated far in excess. In the Distillers area, with what they have invested, over $1 billion online that are going to increase property values, that are going to go back into school systems, that are going to go back into local and municipal governments. Geez, on that alone. And then the governor said $90,000+ a year per job. I think since 2013, there's been close to 1,500 jobs generated. What have we generated then in income tax? We have well exceeded just industry direct the loss of revenues we lost by phasing it out by the revenues we encouraged and created by expanding our base. But most of all, when I talk about my little distilleries in Clay County, understand this. Even though we don't have a single distillery in my area, we have a lot of benefits. And people say, what are they? Well, Paul Hornback, and I know the commissioner is here, I think there's been like 15 million additional tons of corn grown to supply the industry. Well, let me tell you what goes in my area. They built a $10 million plant in Moorhead, Kentucky to be able to supply the hardwoods for cooperages. In Clay County, we have 15 people employed that are doing the preliminary work on white oak to send it to London to have the barrels made for the cooperage. So you can see how the synergies come together through a series of good tax policy, a good series of regulatory policies to create expansion of an industry that goes well beyond where the local distilleries are located. And I think, Eric, you call it the Amber Triangle.
Yes, sir.
So we go beyond the Amber Triangle all through the state. It has huge impact, and it is something I hope, working with the governor, working with the speaker, and our members and colleagues in the Senate, that we can see nothing but growth in this area from one, production, but two, the iconic nature of this industry, how it brings tourists to the state, and close to 1 million people came in last year to see this industry grow and see what it does in the realm of producing bourbons for the world. Appreciate the opportunity. I thank the governor for his leadership. I thank Eric and this group for their leadership.
The new Speaker of the House, Jeff Hoover, his support and pro-business leadership last year helped us pass Senate Bill 11, has been mentioned, by historic margins. And these bold, sweeping tourism reforms are allowing our distilleries to transform themselves into major Napa Valley experiences and continue to grow the tourism pie. So Speaker Hoover, please.
Well, thank you, Eric, and I just want to echo what the governor and President Stivers have already said, and our appreciation to the job that the Kentucky Distillers are doing all across this state, and really showing the world what Kentucky is about in this signature industry and what it's doing to transform not only the economic picture in this state, but the significance around the world. There's not much to add from what the governor has said and President Stivers, but I want to just share 2 or 3 statistics that really sort of puts into focus, I think, the tremendous progress and just the growth that we have seen here in Kentucky in the past few years. I mean, President Stivers talked about Senate Bill 11 and the importance of that and how it's opened things up, but also the repeal of the inventory tax. I want to share one quick story with you. I had a friend from law school who lives in Birmingham, Alabama, who I'd not heard from for several years, call me last year and ask about the Bourbon Trace, or the Bourbon Chase, and running in that and participating. And I said, obviously, if you look at me, you know I'm not a runner, but I can get you some information on that. But it shows what's going on all over this country and how folks are responding and coming to Kentucky because of the growth of this industry. And I just want to share 2 or 3 quick statistics that I think are very telling. Distillers contribute about $8.5 billion each year to Kentucky's economy. That is up $3 billion from 2008. Think about the growth. It's 8.5 now, and it's up $3 billion in less than 10 years. It's up $1 billion alone in the last 2 years. Now employs in the industry 17,500 people, an increase of 2,000 jobs in the last 2 years, an annual payroll of more than $800 million, which is about a $100 million increase just in 2 years. So for all of these folks involved in the distillery industry and who have made this possible and continue to work, I can share with you that our pledge in the General Assembly with President Stivers and the governor is to do everything that we can, as the governor said, even from a tax standpoint, to allow you the opportunity and to put you in a position to continue to grow and expand your business, not only in Kentucky, but across this world. And we're prepared to do that and look forward to the continued good relationship that we have in making those things possible. Thank you all.
Put a couple more things in there. I see several of our craft distillers here today, including Paul Tomaszewski. Paul, come on up here from MB Roland. Craft distillers are one of our growing segments of our industry, and they employ over 200 people with a payroll of $5.5 million and growing. So we're very proud to have them in Kentucky. Our next speaker's family has been farming in the Commonwealth for over 200 years, and legend has it that in his hometown of Scott County, Baptist minister Elijah Craig on the banks of the Whirl Springs founded Kentucky Bourbon. So please help me introduce Commissioner Ryan Quarles and thank him for all the efforts that his team is doing to increase our usage of Kentucky corn.
You know, no matter who you cheered for this week's Super Bowl, I think everyone needed a reason to have a drink after that game, and I hope they chose Kentucky Bourbon. And you're right, Elijah Craig, a Baptist minister, founded my hometown, senator from Scott's hometown, Georgetown, and he used local corn when he started his venture into the bourbon industry. And today I am proud to announce that more Kentucky corn than ever is being used in Kentucky's bourbon industry. We have a 65% increase of Kentucky corn use from last year. And as this industry continues to grow, so does the economic opportunities for Kentucky farmers. This year, we're expecting 15 to 20 million bushels of Kentucky corn to turn into liquid in that slow aging process. And just to put that in perspective, that is twice as much corn that is used to make ethanol in Kentucky. And so as we continue to experience low commodity prices in the agricultural field, we want to say thank you to our friends in the bourbon industry for investing and continuing to invest in Kentucky corn. Now, fellas, I'm not here to pick a fight. I had to choose one bottle, but I filled it with Kentucky corn off of our farm. And this is a great visualization of how, when you go across the world, there's very few things that people recognize from Kentucky. Of course, Colonel Sanders is the most known Kentuckian of them all. But I bet you, no matter where you go in the world, you can find a high-quality Kentucky bourbon that benefits our hardworking Kentucky farmers. So thank you for your dedication. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We obviously could not be this successful without the leadership of our communities, and we're honored to have Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher with us today, who has coined the term bourbonism to talk about how we are bourbonizing our cities through hotels and tourism opportunities and restaurants and culinary scenes. They're also playing a role in the revitalization of Whiskey Row, the famous place, Main Street, downtown Louisville, where many of our distillers had their headquarters before Prohibition. So Mayor Fisher, please, thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Eric, and great job to the entire KDA for pulling together this renaissance in Kentucky bourbon. It's wonderful to see. It's benefiting certainly Louisville and the entire state as well. I join with Governor Bevin here, my fellow Louisvillian, to celebrate this growth here that we have got going on with really what's a signature industry here with bourbon. There's very few things for an economy that you can say are authentically yours and build a whole economy around that. And that's a wonderful thing about bourbon. Sure, people can distill it everywhere else, but it's really just not the same thing if it's not from the Commonwealth of Kentucky. When you get to the local level, this has been tremendous for Louisville. In Louisville, we've seen 24 million tourist visitors each year, drawn largely in part by what we call bourbonism. So there was so much activity going on in this area that we had to come up with a new word. So bourbonism is the combination of bourbon tourists, then people coming to Louisville to enjoy our great local food scene as well. You put those two together and we've got a service unlike anywhere in the world. Now, there is a rumor out there that when state tourism officials hear me say bourbonism, somebody takes a shot, okay? So, get ready. First, bourbonism is the first year-round tourist experience that we've ever had. People come to Louisville primarily for the Kentucky Derby, maybe a Ryder Cup, but we've never had a 24/7, 365 tourism experience like bourbonism before. So Louisville is the official gateway when people are flying in from all over the world for the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. We now have 10 area distillery attractions open or under construction. Angel's Envy just opened on Main Street a month or two ago. Whiskey Row with the Old Forester experience will be opening next year as well, so there's just more and more coming. We've got 23 new hotels either under construction or planned right now to accommodate this growth, from boutique hotels up to the $320 million Omni Hotel project, which was a partnership between the city and the state, and of course Omni as well. Now, bourbonism goes beyond actual tourism as well. We've got a small business industry that's developing around this as well, from bourbon barrel foods, bourbon chocolatiers, art eatables, and then mega investments taking place in the city as well. And so when we ask each other in the industry, where do you think our momentum is? Do you think we're peaking out? Most everybody would say, you know, we're really early in this game because we're just getting started. There is no reason we cannot duplicate what Napa Valley is to wine as Kentucky is to bourbon. We've got a much more authentic product as well. People love that when they come here. So I think what I often said is that we're in the second inning of the bourbonism game. But when you take a look at what's going on, I think it's safe to say we can call it's time for extra innings. So congratulations to everybody on the tremendous progress here, and Louisville's just really thrilled to be part of it. Thank you.
Our friend at the State Chamber of Commerce, President and CEO Dave Atkinson, who I believe has been with us now through all 5 of these announcements. President Atkinson is from Owensboro, where bourbon just returned to the old Medley Distillery, now called the O.Z. Tower Distillery. We're proud to have Earl Hewlett, his team here today with us. And Dave has been a longtime supporter of our industry, and we really cannot thank the Chamber enough for their ongoing support, not only for Kentucky bourbon, but for all of our industries across the state.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric, Governor, Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, and others. It's great to be here to represent the broader business community of Kentucky and to salute our distilling industry today. There are over 540 different types of manufacturing going on in Kentucky, but the distillery industry is taxed at the highest rate of all of them. 39.9% of every dollar paid for the product goes to the government. So that's about $170 million a year to state and local governments, and at least 3 times that going to the federal government. Clearly, bourbon is enjoying a bright spot right now in its development. For the Commonwealth, it's a very bright spot. There are 2 things I think that we can do to make it even brighter. One is to eliminate unnecessary and outdated regulations, Governor. I forgot mine. And the other is to enact sensible tax policy. And their tax reform is on the lips of a lot of people in Frankfort and across the Commonwealth. And we have to, I think, move beyond, when it comes to tax policy, we have to move beyond seeing the industry as a cash cow and think of it as an industry driver that creates jobs and investment and funds our schools, etc. And I think that's an exciting part of what we have in the future ahead of us. You might be surprised that other states are catching up, and we are now 11th in the country in terms of the number of distillery permits. Now, we have 40% of the jobs of all the distilling industry here in Kentucky. That's excellent. We are now 5th in the country for the amount that we tax spirits among the open market states. So we have to be careful that we stay competitive and that we can nurture this industry as an economic driver and not just see it as a cash cow. So on behalf of the broader business community that benefits for every job that is created, every payroll dollar that is paid, that gets spent in a shopping center, on behalf of that broader business community, congratulations and hats off to the distillery industry. Thank you.